This manhwa is about a man who could not defeat the fundamental evil with physical force. In order to defeat the Demon King, it was necessary to have magical power, which the hero named Kim did not have. Because of this, he goes to the very beginning of his survival, pumping up magic with his main characteristic. From this moment, the repeated survival of the person who has reached the end begins, from the strongest to the weakest. It all starts with the hero walking across a field where a lot of monsters are resting. Apparently, he defeated them all. He follows the red road to the boss himself, who is afraid of Jojo. The monster had never experienced this before. It was very strange. On the horizon, he saw the silhouette of a hero. The Lord of Terror felt fear towards another creature. This had never happened before. The guy appeared before the monster. He called his servant, but he quickly lost the battle. The jock was too pretentious and strong. The monster begged for mercy, but quickly turned into a cutlet. Before hitting the boss, Thor's hammer increased in size and hit over a large area. Seeing his death, the Capricorn was frightened. He did not understand how it could be that some person would overcome him. But still, he became just pieces from the last battle, the inevitable tragedy of ancient times repeating itself. The end of the first catastrophe has come. The demonic king Gacernius Max will die at the hand of a hero. But when the guy came to the king's throne, he did not feel its strength, which surprised the jock. The ruler of 8 Garaz appeared before him. Now everything became clear. The king decided to become intangible. If he had a body, then the guy would have suffered the same fate as his comrades. A physical attack against the spirit is useless. This was a brilliant plan from the villain, because the hero was physically strong and now he was outplayed. Even if the demon has lost his entire legion, then while he is alive, the prophecy will not pass. They cannot defeat each other. But it was stupid to just stand next to each other, so the demon began to crush the earth under the man's feet. If the world were flooded with monsters and people perished, then the bro would be left with nothing. The hero was caught. After all, he only trained his body. He had not previously studied witchcraft or magical spells, so it was difficult to defeat the enemy. This power was very important, and he needed it at this moment because without it, there would be no chance to even harm the demon. A couple of minutes later, rays begin to glow from the towers of the fortress. The summoning palace will soon begin to summon victims. The hero sees this. Soon he will be with nothing, so he enjoyed the scraps that he had already managed to finish. He spent so much time here that he already felt at home. They could come for him if he stayed here. These magicians irritated the jock very much. There was no choice left. He activated a special skill to disguise the target. Now the time has come to learn magic. The hero was enveloped in an aura. Apparently a new era had come in his life. He ended up in the summoning palace, or rather in its underground watercourse, where there was a force of a werewolf whom the guy easily defeated. The hero throws one punch at him, so he instantly loses. It's not for nothing that he was considered a very strong person. After the fight, he goes further into the cave. It became difficult for him to breathe. The stench suffocated him. This was not surprising from this place. He began to remember the past. This place was where the jock almost died earlier. He did not want to return here. But this was the only way to secretly learn magic. He walked further through the cave. He needed to get the quest. He needed to blend in with the crowd of recruits. Only then would he be able to choose magic as a subclass. The guy moves on. He has to start all over again, all from the first level. But the square homunculi opened a portal in order to teleport ordinary people to this world. They could not wait for it. Suddenly, a blow from a blade flies to one of the monsters, which pierces it and pulls it towards the hero. He is hooked. A guy named Kim Sung-chol grabs his leg and demands a list of tasks. He did not want to give it to some ordinary person, but he showed his power. Then the dwarf agreed to give him tasks, but it was necessary to let him go. They agreed, and the short one provided a list. The tasks were related to this summoning area. Their rank was ordinary. At first, the guy wanted to increase his intuition. After receiving the list, the guy had to let the monster go, and he did so by throwing him only accidentally with force. The call was supposed to happen soon, but until it happened, Kim sits in the dark and waits for it. When people start showing up, the guy notices this. All the new people don't understand where they've ended up. The dwarves began to gloat over the people. Some were scared, some were arrogant, which is why they became flesh. At this time, the guy makes his way into the crowd and mixes with it. He completed the first part of the plan. The Summoning Square quest was activated, which means the guy's idea was completed. The dwarves began to tell that all newcomers must accept the mission, and they tore some of them to pieces. Everyone became afraid of these kids. Anxiety and panic began. They heard a noise behind the iron gates. Everyone wanted to go back home. The guy understood what would happen soon. Everyone began to see signs that said that everyone could now die. But of course, Kim did not believe this, because he is a former top 1 strongman in this world, having defeated many demons and is practically a ruler. One of the newcomers says that he has an acquaintance who has returned to his home world. He said that this world recognizes only those who manage to survive all the trials. Everyone was offered a weapon. For the hero, for example, it was the sword of Azov, which was the simplest and weakest of all swords. People needed to quickly realize everything and take up arms and start fighting, because a dwarven warrior entered the square. Of course, after what they saw, everyone was scared. The only thing left was to either run or fight. They also brought a praying mantis into the arena. It was enormous in size, everyone froze. They couldn't even move their hand, let alone run away. A lot of large insects flew out and immediately began to attack the newcomers. The mantises won the battle. They easily beat those who had just come to this world. Someone thought it was just a dream, a terrible nightmare trying to escape. But when they caught up with them, all these thoughts disappeared. There was one girl who ran up to the hero and asked for help. He was the only one who could help her. The guy used a hammer rather than a sword for quite a long time, but such a weapon was still good despite his rank. The doctor, whose friend had returned from this world, was still alive but weakened. An insect began to fly at him, cutting off his hand. In the normal world, he was a fairly important person in society, but this was a completely different dimension. He almost dies, but is saved by a guy with a red mohawk, who has already defeated 45 mantises. This was a surprise for the hero, who thought that he would not find anyone from the new world who was not weak. Weaker people who could not fight alone began to unite in groups which would help them survive. The doctor was already in a team with 2 men, one of whom was Mr. Olympia, who was attacked. After the defeat of the ally, the commander ordered the people to press against the wall. Everyone listened to him, and they began to build a defense. Most went to rest, the tactics were a success, the strategist failed to carry out his plan, his comrades died. This was understandable, because it was stupid to expect anything else from a person who simply worked in an office. And the hero analyzed the employee's strategy. He understood that it was hopeless and would not work in this world. There was another person who could repel the enemies of the mantises. Kim noticed him. Perhaps the new one was chosen. Outsiders watched everything. Apparently the hero knew them because he says that they have not changed. They remained the same creatures. The dwarves wanted more spectacle and urged the people, who became more and more frightened because of this. The whole crowd saw the flag. They thought that they would survive if they went out through the door. Panic grew. Everyone tried to quickly cross the dark side and survive, but the first ones who entered this zone were killed. The doc saw this. In that direction, there were some ghouls, half-dogs, who were devouring the newcomers. They attacked the crowd as soon as they saw them. Some wanted to run back, others wanted to stay and try to repel the attack, and disagreements arose. The doctor began to gain importance by force. He threatened people so that they would listen to him and act under his orders. This was seen by the dark-haired man, who decided to intervene in this event. He saves the poor fellow, leaving the doc without a hostage. He gave him the head of a praying mantis. This was his task, which he completed, and now became the owner of the Black Hawk's claw. The newcomer began to rage again. He begged the gods that this would be a dream, just a nightmare. At this time, he notices Kim, who defeats the monster, and he finds a sign with a quote. The next task was completed. Now it was possible to open the characteristics window. The physical parameters were high. In order to obtain the magician subclass, intuition was needed, which the hero had was negative. His stat value was 9, and he needed at least 10 to start learning magic. Afterwards, he sees 2 moons, which was one of the tasks. Now it is completed. Now he has received a palace token. If he received too many tokens, he would attract too much attention. He thought that 10 would be enough for him. In total, about 2,500 different people were called to this field, of which no more than 100 survived. Kim wanted to get the magician class at any cost. He would not care about anything around him, even such a huge loss. A red flag was already visible on the horizon. People stopped fighting. The battle was over, and now the survivors were resting. The guy managed to increase his intuition by only 10. This was the bare minimum, which is why Kim wanted to look for hidden quests. Walking on the ground, he saw only the wounded who could not adapt to life, but suddenly he hears laughter. He sees a crowd of people telling stories from the last battle. The watchman's eye was flying over the participant. This is a hidden quest. The dark-haired man understood where he should go for his tasks. Now everything was clear in the palm of his hand. Doc also survived. He was amazed that the bleeding had not stopped yet. It was hell. Many were wounded and called a doctor for help. Some began to die after the battle. They begged to be released. One of the girls began to go crazy after such a massacre. One of the strong newcomers did not calm down and defeated the enemies. The fat homunculus was too merciful, so he gave the poor fellows a week to rest and get used to the new world. But the only hero knew that no one would survive here for a week. Because there was no food or water, he had to escape. He began to look for the group in which people were laughing, but he could not find it. But he came across many chosen ones who were going somewhere. The watchman's eye flew above them. This is a device that selects people with special potential. Following them would increase the chances of finding the hidden quest, so he followed them. The crowd came to a quiet place. Some thought that someone would jump out at them again and start fighting. Here, even an ordinary wolf was 3 times larger than a person. Each one threatened life in this hardcore world. There were more than 20 people in the group. Perhaps they received shelter from a large guild. A leader appears in the crowd. He numbers 25 people. Then he introduces himself. He was in the role of the head here. His name was Li Ye Hong. The hero thought that the leader was some kind of low-ranking magician, since he had some properties. Suddenly, the head of the homunculi appears with a llama. At first, everyone is scared, but he came to give gifts to the chosen ones. He told everyone to follow him, because if they stumble, they will die. Everyone decided to follow the advice. Some members of the group were unhappy that the head was the bespectacled man. When the guys reached the right place, they saw the cathedral of the forgotten god of order where they entered. At the entrance, you could see an eye that could move. It was strange. It scared people. This place made newcomers feel uneasy. In the temple, there was a hexagon, the emblem of the cathedral of the forgotten god of order. The summoning palace maintains neutrality in the name of the god of order, but the fact that depravity reigns here was strange. The enemy tells people to sit in front of the altar. Everyone had goosebumps all over their bodies because they did not know what would happen. Suddenly, the altar was divided into cubes. Eyes appeared that began to scan people who were afraid of this. But the fat man asked not to worry. When the scanner reached the hero, the altar almost began to shoot a laser at him. Since he had greater strength compared to everyone, he stood out on the scanner. But by minimizing the distortion, everything settled down. One of the group members noticed this. It was strange behavior, but he did not show it. After the test, everyone received +10 to strength, endurance, and agility. Everyone felt new strength. For someone experienced in this world, it was surprising that newcomers received such a skill buff from the beginning of survival. After that, the pot-bellied one began to distribute new swords to patients, which were 10 times better than the old ones. They looked exactly the same, but were lighter. The guys gained confidence in themselves and their abilities. Afterwards, the homunculus says that he is now their captain. Now people must pass the test and return to spawn. One of the gnomes runs into the temple, who tells the captain that more of the chosen ones should come to this place. A new one should come. The head immediately changed his face. The newcomer says that his name is Pak Aram. He was late because of the toilet. Of course, the captain began to get angry. The god of order had already distributed blessings and weapons to everyone. Then the short man says that the leader of the Iron Blood Knighthood personally selected this man, which surprised the boss. This leader was the same spectator who watched the fight from the stands, the one whom the hero did not like. The guy was too arrogant. Even the fact that the head sent him could not stop the captain from being angry. At this time, the hero understood what had happened. Earlier, he had guessed about the actions of the Iron Blood Knighthood. Suddenly, the same guy who suspected Kim was an outsider comes up behind the guy and calls him a rat. The dark-haired man does not understand what is happening at all. He did not know who started talking to him, what the stranger needed. Then the leader of the dwarves realized that there was one person in the crowd who had fooled the system, which caused anger. That same stranger began to guess that the hero was exactly that same person, so he asked Kim about it. Then the guy turned towards the interlocutor, but he felt uneasy, so he didn't want to talk anymore. It was just a psychological trick. The blonde understood that Kim had been in many battles. The mysterious one was smart. The leader came into their conversation and wanted to meet the guy, so he gave his name Leonis. The dark-haired man did not like the fact that geniuses began to surround him, because he could be burned for deceiving the system. Everyone began to introduce themselves. Then a new acquaintance suggested that the guy run away from this place because they would die. The dark-haired man took a step forward. Using the hawk's claws, took the guard's eye into the blonde's and pretended to be him. After he stole the stranger's name, he destroyed the watchman's eye, who was shocked that the hero recognized his name. Olin did not understand with what magic he managed to pull off such a trick, and began to tell the homunculi that the dark-haired traitor. But they no longer believed this. They could only attack the last one. The little one quickly begins to exterminate the enemy. This spectacle was observed by Kim, who still managed to get out of this bad situation to his advantage. The captain wanted to show the newcomers what happens if you deceive him. The deceived began to hate the hero. We then see the group training on the court, honing their sword skills. Some understood that they would die of hunger in this place. They were surprised that their comrades trained tirelessly. Few die without taking a single step, and the blessed candidates grow stronger every day. The hero stands near the target, but instead of hitting it, he watches his teammates who are diligently hitting with their sword. Then he decides that he will restrain his strength in order to stand out from the crowd. He succeeds, the target does not break. He steps aside, now he understands how to control himself, but as soon as he turns around, the target breaks. Everyone sees this, then the dark-haired one quickly runs away, which leaves more and more questions regarding his identity. At this time, the same guy with the red Iroquois accepts new people into his group. His name is Jung Jong-sik. He took into his team only winners who had sufficient strength, but not weaklings. The skater orders them to fight each other in order to survive. They obey him, and Kim watches all this. He didn't fight with anyone, but he sees Puck in the crowd who also didn't fight, then the guy is going to follow him. After some time, the fight on the battlefield subsided. Everyone was very hungry. Some wanted to get out of here. Suddenly they see food that was lying on the floor. It was apples and bread, but very bad, but the guys ran into them. They started fighting again, only not for entry into the team, but for survival, for something to eat. The girl was weak and was instantly thrown aside. She could not resist the hungry monsters. She loses her glasses on the ground. Puck comes up to her, picks up the glasses, wipes them, and gives them to the weak woman. Thanks to the knighthood of the Iron Blood, he could eat food calmly. He invited the girl to have a snack together. They walked to the side, and the dark-haired man continued to watch them. Evening came. The hero was in the forest. He sees a girl, but not the same as during the day. Now she has gone to another world, and next to her lay an apple. Puck's jokes had already gone too far, which infuriated the guy, who realized that the arrogant newcomer was a vile person. He remembered that during the trip to the cathedral, the name of the person in charge of Puck was Dalrins, so the hero headed towards him. When he left, someone was watching him. Kim sensed it. He turned and noticed some red object in the distance. The next day, a group of people are sitting in the forest. They are very hungry. Puck says that he really wants a pig. One of the comrades says that he would just like to eat something, but the leader also wanted fried pork. Someone began to ask about Kim because no one had seen him. He walked through the forest and destroyed bushes until nightfall. It was the first time he had seen such a large concentration of them. They attacked those who emitted the smell of blood. Even the monster that attacked from behind lost to the hero in battle because he was mega strong in this world. He wanted to quickly deal with the reinforcements. The slugs began to attack him in a crowd, but even so, they lost. At this time, a group of people in the forest noticed accumulations of this red mixture. They did not know what it was. They laughed because these creatures couldn't even get to them, so they thought that the slugs were stupid. One of the guys started poking the monster with a stick, but it suddenly jumped on him, which shocked everyone. The monster jumped on his hand and began to melt it. The poor fellow was in pain, but he could not do anything about it. Then a friend began to help the poor fellow, who, thanks to the sword, was able to tear the slug away from his friend. But help came at a high price. Now there was mucus on his face that was burning through his face. Then the leader ordered the guys to be very careful towards the enemy, because the clots smell of blood. Kim comes out of the forest and sees that the group has been attacked, and one guy is just lying and resting. The vacationer wakes up and sees a crowd of monsters in front of him. He is shocked by this because he did not understand what was happening. The guys began to run away from this place in order to survive, and Puck had just gotten to his feet. It was funny for him to watch them. His team was pathetic in his opinion, but a dark-haired man appeared behind him, clearly angry. He kicks the arrogant one. It was strong, so Puck flew away with the first blow. The victim was thrown into a block of stone. The impact was too strong, causing the stone to crack. The weakling did not understand who his opponent was because he had not seen him before. Then Kim flew up and made himself known. With the next punch in boxing, he shows his strength. The newcomer cannot do anything back to him. Arrogant flies into the air and then falls to the ground. It was powerful, but he landed in a crowd of slugs. Kim did not finish off because he expected that such work would be done for him by monsters who were supposed to defeat the weakling. The slugs began to act. The first one jumped on his leg and began to melt it. Then Puck realized what kind of monsters he had fallen into. He did not have the strength to do anything. He accepted his fate and did not resist. Suddenly a portal appears above the poor guy, from where a sorceress, the newcomer's guardian, comes out and freezes the clots. She couldn't believe that she got this weakling who couldn't think logically. It was Dalrins. A guy watched this and realized who had appeared. Then the lady began to completely destroy the slugs with magic. Thanks to the fact that she showed her skills, Kim realized that the girl was a mid-rank magician. She began to revive the newcomer, gave him a healing potion so that the pain would go away and he could get back on his feet. And she would also have problems if Puck died, so it was simply not beneficial for her. The young man needs stamina. To raise it, hidden quests were needed, which is exactly what the dark-haired one needed, who continued to watch. Then the group comes to the cave where training was carried out for the weakling, who did not want to train. It was too hard, but the lady couldn't help him with this. The guy had to cultivate alone. It turns out it was the Vestiar test, which a certain hero Chill performed on his own. Then interest arose. The head of the homunculi, who also watched the guy's training, said that Chill is a hero. Tomorrow Pak will see everything. The hero, who had been watching them until now, became very interested in attending this test. The guy headed deeper into the cave. In front of him, he sees an arrow and does not know where it came from in this place. As if she was lying there for a reason, Kim understood this and continued to walk forward. This dungeon was not an easy one. It is a trial of a vestiary who has reached her limit. There are also rumors that she has a special echo skill. The guy became interested, he wanted to look at it. And the interest was in finding out how the hero got the title Book of Disaster. A mirror appeared in front of the guy. The mirror could fulfill the wish of the dark-haired man. He wanted to receive the most difficult quest. Preparations began. This mission was created for successors. It was lucky that there was still at least some faith in humanity left. When the guy walks through the cave, he begins to smell blood. Some monsters were already sitting on him. The mucus began to take effect. Kim rolled his eyes, he felt bad, and then he wakes up on the beach with beautiful ladies. It was strange that the test was called Endless Darkness, and he himself sat and relaxed on the beach. He didn't want to leave. Suddenly he heard the ladies inviting him to play ball. He took out a hammer and agreed. Then the girl's real appearance awoke. Their eyes began to glow red, which meant a demon. This was seen by Kim, who was convinced of his assumption. He swung and then struck. The monster was defeated. He lost the battle with the guy, which is why he stopped showing the illusion. The hero woke up. But there was a guy in the wrong place where he was attacked. He was chained above the void, and he was attacked by mantises. A demonic king appeared in the fog, who was sure that the guy could not defeat him. Then Kim, with his power, wrapped the king in chains, then took the hammer and hit the demon. The illusion was destroyed. Now the mucus has finally lost, because in the real world he grabbed the clot and squeezed it. Attacks on the mind do not affect him, because the dark-haired man's will is strong. It cannot be destroyed. Suddenly he felt the energy. She was strange. A girl appeared behind the guy, who was upset that her family spirits had died. It was a fragment of the Vestiar's memories. The guy understood that it was a fragment in front of him, and not the Vestiar herself. It was surprising that one fragment of memories contained so much magical power. Because of this, it was a test. The lady says that only those who manage to overcome 32 pleasures and 27 planes will be able to get the reward. But the guy had already dealt with everyone. She was surprised by this. It was very interesting to meet such a person. Kim realized that a piece of consciousness remained in this fragment because the fragment communicated with him. Then Vestiar realized that she had been discovered. This was beyond her expectations from ordinary mortals, which she told the hero. He took out a weapon, apparently going to defeat her, receiving a reward for the test, but she was ready for this. Kim wanted to attack, but they began to cast magic on him, which limited his movements. Then the lady began to attack Kim. But these cheap tricks did not work on the hero. He broke the restriction spell. He dodged the attack and immediately counterattacked. He hit the enemy, but he managed to move. Now she was flying in the air and again attacked with fire. These pathetic attacks did not work on Kim. Then the lady used the echo skill. Now the dark-haired man saw it. Now not just one fireball was flying at him, but a lot. But it instantly ended up behind the girl's back. He hit the hammer, it flew off and hit the ground. But the guy understood that this was not enough to win. The brother began to ask about the hero Chill, but she offered to follow her, because then he would meet him according to the prophecy. He began swinging the hammer again, and in the last seconds, the girl said that the dark-haired man was very similar to her. This surprised him. He wondered what she meant. She said that she could smell the similarity through the nightmare. Kim was much more disappointed in people than she and her comrades. This interested the hero even more. She asked what the guy would do if his hope disappeared like ashes in the wind. He became angry and hit. He hit his opponent exactly on the head with his weapon, and now he has defeated her completely. Afterwards, we will learn the story, like in ancient times, which now no one even remembers. People were called into an unusual world, and while the irresponsible gods thought only of themselves. Underdeveloped, cruel, but noble people made a sacrifice in order to get rid of disasters. At the center of events, 7 heroes stood out, including Vestiar, but the legend about them has a sad ending. There was a document that said that forgotten heroes would soon rise and bring destruction. But such a fate will never touch Kim, who has now achieved the status of Dream Destroyer by destroying Vestiar. And the reward was that the hero now received improvements to magical statuses, including intuition. But he received a small reward, he expected more, but suddenly he finds out that 7 heroes noticed his presence. Tom didn't care, and the defeated woman gives him a gift. It was the Book of the Weaver Echo, which contains secrets. This scroll looked like some kind of legendary artifact. Then he wanted to open the book, but couldn't. He needed 50 tokens. Kim then realized that he still had a lot of work to do to accomplish what he wanted. Afterwards, we see a guy who is clearly puzzled by something. He has to submit a report tomorrow because his life depends on it. He wants to take a look at the events before the signal disappears. He went to the fortune-telling ball and saw unstable images. But suddenly, the silhouette of a dark-haired man appears. The scientist understood that something strange was happening, but thought it was a glitch. Afterwards, he goes to his mistress, from whom he asked to borrow her watchman's eye, but she did not want to give it away. She was upset that her student could not do anything. She had never seen anyone like him before, and then ordered him to leave. The lady will not report the guy's progress because otherwise he would be caught tomorrow. Then he will walk along the road with grief. He was offended by the lady who did not help him. Another man saw him who did not understand why he was in despair. The crybaby did not want to answer the question. The pumped-up Thomas Shelby began to laugh with the whiner, who did not stop crying. This man was a slave hunter on the Christian estate. Suddenly, the student sees something that surprises him. Then the scientist quickly stops showing his moral state, gets to his feet and leaves. But according to the hunter, this was not the end. These words again surprised the student. His suffering returned the man to childhood. They begin to communicate, Christian tells his past, in which the newcomer saw common features. The bespectacled boy asks his new acquaintance to help him, since he understands how difficult it is for a student who does not meet the deadline. The pumped-up one gives him the key to the gate leading to the summoning area. Now he himself needed to find the slaves. He enters the dungeon. Holding a torch in his hands, one of the slaves was already knocking in the cage, trying to escape. It was too bad in this place, the scientist could not be here with disgust. Then he meets the homunculi. They started looking for candy and wanted to eat it, but the bespectacled man quickly defeated them because he was arrogant. Now the guy was covered in blood. He took some towels and continued to look for Jang Hyun-suk, whom the crybaby was offended by. At this time, the hero leaves the cave. Now he was carrying more objects with him than usual. Then, in order not to carry extra burden, he opens the soul storage room where he stores things. There was a lot of stuff in this storage room. The dark-haired man also received a moonlight rod. Its characteristics were useless. But due to the fact that the first rating match was about to begin, Kim kept it. He hung it behind his back. But in order to get the magic class, there were as many as 9 points of intuition left. And there were no palace tokens that were needed to open the book. The guy didn't want to miss the rating match. Kim returns back to the square, where the gnomes are distributing food to people so that they will live until tomorrow. Everyone swoops in. The buns were moldy, but this did not stop people who even began to quarrel with each other over food. The homunculus was glad that people with such an appetite swooped in for food. The rating match was a competition that weeded out weak people. The hero was surprised that the match would be tomorrow. Apparently it was postponed, and Puck watched the hungry people and laughed at them. Every ranked match ends with hundreds of deaths, sometimes causing more than half of the candidates to die due to difficulty. The dark-haired man thought that he still needed to play along, pretending to be a weak participant so as not to be suspected. He looked at Puck and saw the watchman's eye, and realized that he would soon be completing a new hidden quest. There is no time. You need to increase your intuition, so that the guy uses the Echo Weaver, he needs to become stronger. But he did not forget to look and keep an eye on the arrogant, an additional task for him. At this time, the leader was gathering people. He collected them to eat, after which the crowd followed him. Only Kim and another guy remained in the square. This stranger invited Kim to eat food with him, holding 2 sandwiches in his hands, but the hero refused. The good man began to say that he needed to eat, because if you stop eating, you can lose energy before the match. Then Jojo agreed, and the guy was kind and honest. The stranger told stories from the past world. He even had ramen, which he offered to eat to the dark-haired one, but he was only thinking about the competition tomorrow. It was obvious that the betting would begin in the finals of the match. Probably in the first round he would have to fight against Alamarul or Pac-Man. But the difficulty depends not only on the monster itself. Suddenly, a silhouette in a red robe enters the square. Kim notices this. At first he thought it was a necromancer, but it was the same bespectacled man who was looking for Jang Hyun-suk. Afterwards, in the tower, we see a crowd of magicians casting spells and summoning many skeletons that come to life and stand on their feet. While the student is walking across the field, he sees a crowd of ordinary workers fighting over a loaf of bread that has already become moldy. Because of a fight between strangers, the newcomer is pushed in the back, causing him to fall to the ground. Everyone looked at the red one. They saw another loaf of bread near the bespectacled man. Then the whole crowd rushed towards the guy. He managed to dodge. He understands that there is not a single candidate here, but then he sees them in the stands. The leader and several other influential people stood there, but the scientist did not find Chan. Then he began to count people. He counted 24 people, which means the one he was looking for was somewhere among the people. He sees someone and is shocked. The bespectacled boy saw a hero who was sitting too calmly, but he did not have a guard's eye. It was a surprise. Then the guy in the red robe realized that the dark-haired one had deceived the system. The guys met their eyes. Kim decides to leave the stands. He walks along the road. Suddenly, this scientist grabs him by the collar and demands an explanation. The hero does not understand who grabbed him because he could not recognize the attacker, and also did not understand when he managed to offend the necromancer. Then the bespectacled man tells the hostage to follow him. If, of course, the dark-haired one wants to live, they go into the forest. When the guys entered the forest, the scientist immediately received a powerful blow, from which he flew away and immediately lost the battle. The loser did not understand who he was up against, how such an ordinary, unelected person could be so strong. Afterwards, the dark-haired man saw that in front of him was not a necromancer, but an ordinary magician who had come in search of a conscript. Kim understood who he was talking about and said that he was already dead. Then the bespectacled man realized that he would soon die and asked for mercy. Then the dark-haired man threw him a wallet with precious stones because he needed the scientist for some plans. If the magician had helped the hero, he would have survived. He happily began to carry out the guy's orders. Time passes. The scientist comes to one of the heads of the Iron Blood Knighthood, who sent him for Chan. He finds out about Krill Legal, after which the bespectacled man gives the pouch with precious stones to the head, who is amazed at their beauty. The knight orders the guy to return to work. He was surprised, because the conscript had already died, but the soldier Ma Sang-gil did not think so. Then the magician remembered the words of the dark-haired man, who said that if you give a bribe, they will pretend that you have forgiven. But this is not so. Everything was just as the dark-haired man said. Then the magician returned to his room and sent Kim a letter. The squirrel, who was supposed to carry this letter, quickly went to do her job, after which she finds the dark-haired man. He will give you a piece of paper that says that tomorrow the match will be against a crowd of zombies, and there will also be bonus zombies. Everything was as the guy expected. He wanted to destroy all the bonus monsters and receive a special reward. The day of the match arrived. A crowd of people stood in the square. Everyone wanted to sleep since they had slept very little time. The dark-haired man stood with the guy who shared food with him in the past. The hero learned that today was a great fight. Then the good man said that they were advised to attack first and not hesitate. They needed to defeat at least 30 monsters. Then Kim realized that the scientist had not lied to him. Then the homunculus began to perform on stage, who opened the event. The rules were simple. You just need to defeat those who will attack them. For defeating them, people will receive a prize. They will be provided with clean water and food. The event began with blood raining. At first, the participants thought it was water, but soon realized that it was not so, but they were already accustomed to this world. One of the shorties rang the trumpet. The gate opened from where the zombies came. Everyone began to prepare for battle. The hero in this battle used a magical staff that he had previously obtained in a cave with a test. He wanted to defeat the bonus ones. The task was to defeat the enemies. Their number determines their value. The dark-haired man did not hesitate. At this time, Puck was carrying a spirit wolf staff with him. It is a dangerous thing in the hands of an inexperienced person. The hero noticed this. He realized that there was no other choice. At that time, the leader also fought with a sword against the zombies. The enemies surrounded the girl, who was in the commander's group, but the doc managed to help her, and their desire to fight awoke. Puck decided to activate his staff. A black wolf appeared, who was now fighting on the side of the guy, who was delighted. The beast alone easily dealt with the threat, while others either fought with swords or ran away. But the animal attacked not only the dead, but also people, for example the doc. Then the lady was offended by Puck. But he was already going crazy. He wanted to destroy everyone who stood in his way, even people. The summoned creature also attacked the girl, who could not defend herself, but the wolf was destroyed by Kim, who saved the lady. The good man who walked with the hero was surprised to see the abilities of a friend who received a gift from Santa. But instead of chatting, it was better to look around because there were still monsters on the field that could attack. The boy managed to repel the attack. It was too easy for him. He wanted more fights with his enemies. The hero has already destroyed 28 zombies, 2 remained, after which he defeats another bonus enemy. He had the last one left. He sees him. He was too big and powerful, so he easily defeated people. Puck went crazy again. He again summoned the wolf, but the hero quickly knocks out the owner of the staff, which is why the beast disappears. He wanted to quickly destroy the last bonus enemy, but a girl quickly runs near him, surprising Kim. Then the guy realizes that if he hits with his staff, he won't have time to defeat the enemy, so he takes Azov's sword and throws it at the zombies. The girl sees this, but one blow from Kim could not defeat the enemy. Then the lady wanted to quickly defeat the dead man. She manages to do this. The hero is surprised at how quickly she decided to act. Now he has become interested in her. Both were credited with defeating the bonus monster, but as soon as they had to share the reward, the guy wanted to take the tokens. The lady asks for forgiveness for her interference. The guy is surprised because they both chose tokens. Kim got the spiritual shield. The lady says goodbye and quickly runs away. Then the guy begins to reason. Apparently the girl was not a simple conscript. After all, the newcomers did not take the tokens, but she took them. It seems to her that she knows something about this world and its structure. Evening came. Several people remained on the field. Some died, but they were able to withstand the battle. There will be a common reward. The dark-haired man did not even think about such changes. The first great fight came to an end. The team of white conscripts defeated 852 monsters. Among all teams, white ranks 4th on the list. The hero chose the white team, since previously it always took first place, but now times have changed. The dark-haired man destroyed 35 monsters. He was assigned A class, and was also given food for a week. The rewards depended on the rank of the palace. Since the evaluation here is relative, it is allowed to fight against draftees from other teams. If the guy got S rank, then he could stop starving. He was presented with a choice of a common reward, but a stranger appeared. He asked if Kim had the same bottle, but he didn't have one. It turns out it was holy water. Barnaby was advised to take her, and he chose her indiscriminately, which was strange, because in this world you cannot act stupidly. The hero chose an explosive scroll. This surprised the newcomer, who only followed advice. The dark-haired one did not like to obey. This scroll allows you to use magic for a large-scale explosion. The guy didn't manage to get away with it beautifully. The good man says that Kim is lower in rating than him. He was stunned by such information and was very surprised by this. He opens the list of the best and sees that in first place is a man named Some Dog. The guy immediately remembers the lady who was strong in that battle. Perhaps it was just her. Afterwards, the comrade scrolls through the list below and shows that he is 1 place higher. His name was Ha-Yong Jong. Then the guy began to brag about his skills, and the dark-haired one continued to look at the list without taking his eyes off. Perhaps a bug. But he was not looking at his statistics at all. He noticed that Pak destroyed only 29 enemies, and he was looking for the staff. He interrogated people who were weaker than him. Suddenly, one of the strangers wanted to stop the madman. But he became even more furious because no one could interrupt him from his work. He began to find out where his staff was. Kim saw this. Apparently the madman did not receive a reward, but suddenly the girl whom he saved approached the dark-haired man. The good man immediately began to carry on a conversation with her, although apparently she had not come to him at all, and Kim only turned around. The lady's name was Bae Sun Hee, who didn't destroy a single monster. She's just an ordinary girl from an ordinary Marayu. She was in last place in the ranking. Then the hero asked her why she came. She could barely speak. The boy didn't want to listen to the girl's mumbo-jumbo, so he decided to leave. Then she resolutely asked her brother for the staff. The comrade was surprised by such a request, but the dark-haired one was ready to give it up. But only in return she could do anything. Her uncle was a member of the Order of Iron Blood. She wanted to say what follows from this, but the guy understood what she meant. He didn't need that. He's JoJo, so he wanted to get something from the top. He wanted to get something useful. She takes the hero to a dry well, which has a quest after which you can get the alchemist class. Now the guy had to give the staff in return, but he didn't need the alchemist class. He needed another quest for intuition. But she didn't want him to just up and leave. She asked him to stop, because this quest gives 15 points. He frightened her with his menacing gaze, but she did not take back her words. If she deceived, she would feel bad. He gave the staff and climbed inside the well. He lands at the bottom of the well and is surprised at what he found there. There were traces of Eckhart's 8th hero. Suddenly the menu changes its appearance and a red mouth comes out, which scares the hero. Kim only knew about 7 heroes, and this was the first time he had heard about the 8th, and he realized that the girl had deceived him. But because of Eckhart's insult, the guy's intuition decreased by 1 point. He became angry and did not understand how this could be. This characteristic was very dear to him. He grabbed the menu, but it said that the spirit of the 8th would never disappear. He ordered that his intuition be returned to him, because otherwise he would tear up everything here. They returned it to him. He did not want to complete such quests. But they stopped him and said that he could get a maximum of 10 intuition for such a quest, and a familiar. He realized that the reward was reduced, said that 20 intuition and he would begin to complete the task. He managed to persuade him to 15. Of course, the dark-haired man agreed to the quest. Eckhart's final test began. He took the hammer in his hands. After that, I hit the gate. It broke with 1 blow. It became more and more interesting. He goes further. He finds potions on the table. His intuition has increased by 1 unit due to the feeling of the great power of the legacy. The guy thought that he would be given more intuition, and again began to get angry at the status window. But suddenly the legacy noticed Kim. In the first stage, you had to prove your abilities as an alchemist. A robot woke up, which the hero noticed. He thought that he should throw the potions that he had recently taken at the enemy. He did so, they broke and began to burn. The robot began to run from side to side. Kim was able to defeat the magic golem. He received intuition and a scroll for an alchemist. This was not at all the talent that the menu spoke of, but he still received the award. Kim notices a whole core in the golem. He takes it in his hands. He realized that if the owner is Eckhart, then he was a good magician in his time. Later, he goes to the altar on which the class change scroll should have been placed. He realizes that all this is not a joke. The guy doesn't want to change anything and moves on, but the passage is closed. It is open only to alchemists. He decides to leave. But suddenly spikes appear in front of him. It's good that he managed to stop, then he decides to simply smash everything into pieces. Then he comes up with a cunning plan to have fun. He wanted to pretend to be weak in order to pretend that he was caught. He decides to activate the class change scroll. He had to spend as many as 20 tokens for this, and so he does. Now the alchemist class was added to the subclasses. Now he could continue to go further. He was interested in continuing to go. The guy enters the room where he is given a second test. He had to create an object that would free the golem. It was necessary to create an object from what was in the room. Time was limited to 10 minutes. You need to act. The fire on which the cauldron stood caught fire. The guy could see the description of the objects. This was the skill of alchemists. Jojo thought that throwing everything into the cauldron was the right decision, and the menu looked at it and was surprised. He threw in every ingredient. Too much mana began to come out. He hated this class. It turns out that Kim cooked everything right. The legacy was shocked by his cooking abilities because the guy quickly created everything. Now, with the help of a new substance, the guy began to melt the web. He poured the substance, but the web remained the same. The menu began to say that this test was not so simple. There were 30 seconds left until the end. The web did not melt. There was very little time left. Then the hero began to use physical strength to remove the cobwebs, and he succeeded. This was a path that the legacy did not expect at all, but still the guy succeeded. But in the last test, there was a fight with a golem. Then the dark-haired man picks up a hammer that has gone through almost everything in this world and hits the mechanism with a strong swing. Because of such power, everything collapses, the dungeon is destroyed, the menu was deceived, but the task was completed. The guy received a relic, a magician's book, Bertelgia's living book, Eckhart's portable alchemical furnace, and intuition. A flying book appeared, which called the dark-haired man a deceiver and a swindler. He turns and is surprised at what he sees. A girl appeared from the book who could talk. She was unhappy that her owner was a crook. Her name is Bertelgia. She is a living book that fell into the hands of a guy as a reward, but he wanted to know her skills. The book contains knowledge of alchemy left by Eckhart, who was wondering if it was possible to remove the curses of destruction. But there is no such thing in the world. Eckhart himself was not able to do such a thing. Then he became interested in the magician's book. In 25 years of living in this world, he had never heard of such a thing. This book could change the class to magic. The fulfillment condition was stupid, because it said that Eckhart's daughter should be guided to the true path, but she was dead. But the book said that she exists, and she is right in this place. Then the dark-haired man began to look for her. Bertelgia says that she is the daughter of the 8th hero. He closes the book and throws it into the storage room. He will use this later, after which he comes back to the summoning square. Next to him is the squirrel messenger of the scientist. The hero was brought a letter about the rules of the next raiding game. The monster will be Pac-Man and Tam Tam. The reward is high. If you are unlucky with the order, then you will hardly get any palace tokens, which means that problems may arise. All means must be used to take the first place needed to carry out Kim's plan. But he cannot interfere with luck. He needs to find some kind of plan. He had to deal with the candidates. Jojo began to go out. He sees a girl near whom a crowd of guys had gathered, but the lady did not have cleansing water. If you pretend that everything is happening for the sake of Bei Sun-hee, they will easily follow the hero. He began to talk about a training plan so that the guys would become much stronger, but then Puck appeared and began to communicate with the lady. The girl didn't even want to see him, so she pushed him away from her. He was upset by this action. Then one of the crowd began to defend the lady, threw the arrogant one even further. Puck began to get mad at this. But now there was no longer one person against him, but a whole crowd. He didn't like it, so he ran away. The hero understood that Puck could not be ignored, because he could do anything, but first he had to start preparing. The next day he made 10,000 hits with a heavy ball. He made 9,000. Everyone looked in surprise. The dark-haired man promised that if the comrades completed the training without any delays, he would give them a feast. In the evening, Kim began to communicate with the doc, who believed that no one would follow the guy's example because they had little provisions. The leader, or the doc, gathered his people from the gang to vote. No one wanted such tough training. Then the guy went to another gang, the leader of which was a guy with a red Iraqis. They only wanted power. The dark-haired man said that after training, the members of this gang will receive up to 25 points of strength, agility, and health. The leader understood that after training his people would become twice as strong. He had to take the offer. He had 24 power points. If the hero deceived him, he would be very angry with the hero. In order not to stand out from the background, Kim wanted to lose on purpose once, but the red-haired one threw a knife at the boy without strength. He died. Such a crazy gang with a leader. It seemed to the hero that this inadequate person looked like his friend. Then a strong man named Young Jung-sik began to gather his guys and announced that the days of hellish training were beginning. Night has fallen. The hero is sitting in a group with the guys where the lady was. He is preparing food for everyone. After cooking, he puts the food on the table. Everyone is very hungry because they haven't eaten such luxury for a very long time. The cook says that the food is ready. The guys can start eating. Everyone began to enjoy their food. The good man began to get acquainted with the lady, offering her his food. Puck watched the whole feast from the side. He was noticed by a hero who did not know what the psycho was up to, but after he left, the dark-haired one was ready to destroy him. The raiding battle begins. Tam. There is a very cruel and ferocious monster. Within an hour, people must evade attacks. If they defeat the monster, then fulfill the conditions of the battle and win. If, of course, they manage to do this, the gates have opened. This monster destroys people for fun. For summoners, he is the most dangerous creature, but not this time. The girl said that she did not see Yang John. This surprised the dark-haired man, and the gorilla began to crawl out into the wild. It raged. Everyone was very scared of such a huge creature, but it was necessary to fight, otherwise you would die. Kim notices Pak. He was holding some kind of bottle. The battle began. The doc ordered his gang to flee. The monster was huge. He immediately grabbed the first victim, who was unlucky, and the second he was able to take the whole crowd. This monster was too strong. The psychotic leader did not know what to do. He ordered it to disintegrate and remain alive until the end. While everyone was afraid of Tom Tam, the hero simply watched. There was not a single emotion on his face indicating fear. It began to attack people with renewed vigor, but suddenly the leader began to open the same bottle as Pak's. It was cleansing holy water. Thanks to it, he created a shield because of which the burn could not attack. Armuk Bakr, the commander of the Stormfront Alliance Corps, observed the entire battle. He felt sorry for the white team. Next to him stood the senior commander of the Iron Blood Odin, Ma Sang-gil, who began to call Dalrins. She appears from the portal. He knew that there had been no reports from her since Puck was unable to get water. But according to her, there was no need to worry because this problem had already been solved. Water could not be produced using magic. But the sorceress began to speak with quotes from a philosophy textbook. There was nothing dangerous in extracting holy water. At this time, the number of people on the team was decreasing. This was monitored by Kim, who counted 62 people. He hid with the team. Before they could crawl out to another place, they had to wait until the monster was saturated. And for this, you still need to feed 30 units. Suddenly, Pak appears on the field. He is the only one who appeared before Tam Tam. He only had a sword in his hands. He throws it. The monster turns towards the insolent one. From such arrogance, the creature goes berserk and attacks. The spectators were shocked by the actions of their comrade, who openly attacked. The dark-haired man realized what Pak's plan was, who turned back and began talking to Kim about water. The hero ordered the team to scatter when he himself gave the sign, at which time the fearless one opened a bottle of water. When he began to conjure holy water, the guy gave a sign to his friends. Now they scattered throughout the territory. The madman gloated. Now the gorilla attacked his friends, but they acted according to plan. Kim ran into battle. The dark-haired man foresaw the actions of the arrogant one. He ran straight under the monster without fear, and then took out an explosive scroll. A huge explosion occurred, which was able to harm the monster, and it received significant damage in its direction. After such a powerful blow, the scroll burned down. The monster began to burn. Everyone was confused about what was happening. The smoke did not allow the audience to watch the battle. The hero had to take advantage of this to defeat the gorilla. He very quickly defeats a monster that no one could handle. The monster fell due to damaged tendons. The psychotic leader went into the thick of it. He held 2 swords in both hands. He continued to fight with the creature, calling for his team. But not only his gang came to his aid, but also everyone else who began to believe in their own strength. The whole crowd decided to go on the attack. After all, those around them were at least of some use. The comrades realized that they couldn't pierce the skin with a sword. They had to hit where they were wounded. The monster began to pull its paw towards the hero, but he receives a powerful blow of magic in the eye, causing him to fall. This blow was delivered to the girl who was at the bottom of the top. The dark-haired man was glad that his friend was able to master the techniques on this staff. Now she could make a difference. It began to get light. The guys defeated Tam Tam. They received a reward regardless of the award points. The lady contributed 3.3% to the battle, and the guy 18.4%. Having received the S-tier reward, he chose the warrior's crossbow. The crowd began to discuss their percentages. Some had 0%, so they did not receive an award. Jojo knew that it was because they were sitting under the dome of holy water, that it was a fair punishment. Park was angry at the system. The dark-haired man didn't know what the psycho did to Ha Young-jun. It was very interesting. When night fell, the hero asked the leader about the disappearance. He said that he knew nothing. The guy realized that they were lying to him, and the bespectacled man was hiding something. Then he decided to use a trick by giving him food. Having taken out the delicious food, they still tell him the information. Then the hero goes to the cathedral. He did not understand why the missing person came here. What was also strange was that Yang Zhang came to this temple with the director, and right before the raiding match. At first it was not clear that there was no one inside, but he sees something strange. He runs in this direction. He looks and sees a dead magician lying on the floor. He noticed wolf fur, but there are no ordinary wolves walking here. The matter became more and more interesting. With his logical operations, he guessed something. At this time, the leader of the homunculi was chilling. He was thinking about the fact that people confuse him with an ordinary short man. He is met by a hero who exposes the captain. It became clear that he brought the cart in order to load the bespectacled man's body. If Kim saw everything, then he would also die. But the leader began to lose to Jojo. This was clear from the first seconds the interrogation began, but he allegedly knew nothing. The guy tried to get information out of him. Then the commander said that he had killed the magician Pak, but he did not believe him. Then the homunculus says that Puck is a werewolf and offered to take a look. From that moment on, the monster became the hero's servant. The guy turned into his previous appearance, in which he appeared 25 years ago in this square. The monster remembered him. The monster called him the enemy of the world. He thought that the dark-haired man had died, but it was not at all what he thought. The guy grabbed his leg and threw him into a tree. He was just playing with this weakling. Now the hero had information. At this time, a gang meeting was taking place. The red-haired one was talking with the doc. The psycho was unhappy that people had lost fear. Because of this, they took away what did not belong to them. Now the bespectacled man had to answer for his actions. A conflict arose. The gang leaders were shouting at each other. No one wanted to talk calmly. The madman was completely enraged. From that moment on, the madman announced that the square was assigned to him. If you didn't like something, you had to fight. But the bespectacled gang was not going to just lose. There were more of them, but Puck didn't want to fight. He asked the leaders, who were boiling like water, to cool down. Then the psycho hit the newcomer for his arrogance. The captain told everyone to get lost, otherwise it would be bad for everyone, but Puck decided to insist on his own. Only now in a different way. He became a werewolf, which surprised the commander. Now he is a real werewolf. Everyone was scared by this event. All this was observed by Kim, who was now convinced of this with his own eyes. The wolf began to push the red-haired man. No matter how strong Young-sik is, he definitely cannot cope with the werewolf. He began to prepare for battle, and the guards came to him. But Pak was already mad. He began to swing his arms to hit because his opponents could not do anything to him. He destroyed the defenders of the boss, who was surprised by the strength of the wolf. Now his interest grew and grew. He could not be scared. Then Puck began to get angry. But the werewolf's actions are stopped by Dalrance, who says that the boy is in danger if he continues to behave this way in public. The dog no longer cared. He wanted to do what he wanted. The guy was saved by an unknown force, thanks to which he quickly left without fear. But the werewolf saw this and did not want to lose his prey. He rushed towards Chan, but was stopped by the spiritual wolf. This was a very good moment for salvation. Now the summoned creature began to fight against the madman. Puck lost, then turned into an ordinary person who now had a wound. He realized that he was attacked with his own staff. The time to transform into a werewolf is 5 minutes, but this is enough to conquer the area. But who summoned the spiritual wolf was a mystery. Then the hero again notices the same girl who surprised him at the raiding game. She had this staff. Growing up, the dark-haired man had the same opinion that she was as professional as Kim. The hero received a letter again. It contained information about Dalrance. She graduated from the academy in Erfurt. She also had a bad reputation. She kept an eye on Pakham all the time except for the moment when he went into the forest with his friends. After reading, the dark-haired man cannot see Puck. He has disappeared somewhere. It looks like he went into the forest, an excellent time for the fate of the arrogant. At this time, another girl asked for mercy from a stranger in a cloak. He took it off and immediately became a werewolf. While the wolf was enjoying the food, Dalrance talked with her students. She hated Puck because he had a very terrible character. She watched him eat. She could not understand how such a person, whose father is the commander of the Iron Blood Order, could behave like this. But the lady had only 2 raiding battles left before she could rise to the very top. The girl herself wanted to destroy her successor, but she turns to the bespectacled man whom we saw earlier. The lady asks him if the recruit has found the conscript he was previously looking for. All his comrades are surprised and look back. The magician says that he found the one he was looking for, but he spoke as if he was hiding something. Dalrymple was surprised by what she heard. She began to like newcomers who have become smarter. While he is a magician, he cannot avoid meeting with her, so it is better not to quarrel with her. The result was 1. Give her a bribe, just like he did before. He left the office and again began to remember Kim. The magician understood that the hero was much stronger than the new recruit. He had a strong crystal. But why did he need information about Dalrymple? He realized that the dark-haired one was going to harm her. At least he had guessed before. At that time, the wolf ate the food. When he finished eating, a hero appeared on the horizon. They were both waiting for this meeting. The werewolf was confident in himself, but suddenly his strength began to leave him. It turns out this was due to the fact that animals, unlike people, can sense the strongest, which is what happened right now. It was a feeling of fear, but he did not want to believe it and attacked, but was immediately grabbed by the hero. After which he threw the enemy into a block of stone. The throw was very powerful, since the wolf was left exhausted and lying on the ground. He could not believe that he was inferior in strength to a man, because earlier he had been promised that Pa would be the strongest in the square. But this was not the case at all. The madman was just a rag who was very sorry, but they still continued to beat him. The loser began to ask Dalrymple for help, but she did not follow him at that moment, just as the letter said. The guy felt happy and continued to fight with the dog, who could do nothing to oppose him.